Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Psycho, and I've got another Fear the Walking Dead review for you all, and this one is going to be my review of Season 2, Episode 2, titled, We All Fall Down. Now, before I even begin with this review, I just want to say that I absolutely love this episode, and in my honest opinion, I feel like it was on par with some Walking Dead episodes. It's also one of my favorite Fear the Walking Dead episodes up to date as well. I loved how the episode started out where it is showing the walkers and the floaters coming in from the waves onto the beach, and that was just a really cool scene in my opinion because we don't get those ocean scene elements in The Walking Dead, so it's definitely cool to see something new and something fresh, and I just love those shots because they're just beautiful the way they look. I've always loved the ocean and things like that, so I just really love those shots, and in addition to that, we see the little kids playing on the beach, and it was really cool how they misdirected us, and it wasn't done in a dirty way. I respect the way they filmed this scene. They made us think that there was no barrier within the walkers and the kids, but then we noticed right as they were about to get up to them that they hit the fence, and it just made you think, whoa, now that was pretty cool how they did that. Seeing the kids bring up the seashells to the walkers also reminded me of Lizzie and Mika in The Walking Dead. One more thing that I would like to add on to that intro was the way that it was done. I feel like it was done very well, and it reminded me of a Lost intro. Lost has always had very good intros in a way that they captivate you with a little mystery, and then they connect what happens in their episode back onto that intro. So I feel like they did a great job at doing this, and it's kind of cool to see it being a little similar to Lost's intros. Moving back on over to the group at Strand's boat, I like the moment where Nick basically talks about the yacht log, and it proves that what he got was useful, because it says San Diego has been destroyed and bombed and there's nothing left there, and they basically go and tell Strand, and he just doesn't want to hear it. In addition to that, I like how they stay consistent with the Walking Dead universe, in which they talk about how they napalm the place, just like how we saw in Season 5, where Rick and his group go up to that hospital, and they see a bunch of napalmed people, and I just like seeing the story be consistent like that, and it all connecting together very well. As it reaches towards nighttime, Madison sees the light flickering on the island, and that is what attracts them to it. This sort of reminded me of one of the episodes in Season 1 where I think Chris was looking on top of the roof and seeing the light flashing, and then Travis saw it as well, and that just felt like it was kind of a parallel back to Season 1. We see them get off the boat and then walk onto the island, and it is an interesting situation because they're outside this person's house. However, we don't know who is inside, and that is very captivating because the idea of this mystery is very interesting. We finally see that little kid walk out that we saw in the intro, and then a man named George walk out with him. I really love the quote where Travis basically says, "You have no reason to fear us." This connects over to The Walking Dead, in which where Rick Grimes talks about how the survivors are the Walking Dead, and then coming back over to Fear the Walking Dead, as we know the title is Fear the Walking Dead, and he is basically contradicting with what the title says, and he's saying that you have no reason to fear us, and us as in The Walking Dead, which would be a false statement. That's just something cool that I found very interesting. We then transition to all of the group members going into their house and getting to know one another. Now, I think that some people might view this as a waste of time and slow burn, but in my opinion, I love this dialogue because we're getting the viewpoints of different characters, and these characters are giving us information that we didn't know yet, such as the cities like San Diego, and all of those cities. Half of the country that we know, possibly even more, like we know in The Walking Dead, is taken over by these walkers, and this apocalypse situation is affecting everyone. I think the guy named George was an anthropologist, and I loved how they spread these little puzzle pieces throughout the whole episode, such as the woman talking to Madison, where she's asking Madison about little kids and whether she had ever taught them and if she didn't like them. And we didn't really know what this question was at first, and I thought, well, maybe those little kids aren't actually theirs. And then in the end, we understood why she said that. And in addition to that, we got the scene with the anthropologist named George, and he's talking about how he believes that everyone should die together. And I think he said something about Travis immigrating from New Zealand to America, something along the lines of that. And we don't really understand why he brings these points up, and in the end it all comes together perfectly. To me, this feels like such a great example of storytelling, and this is one of those examples of how you cannot say that this show has bad writing, because as we saw in this episode, there was a lot of great writing and storytelling going on here. Hearing what George had to say about his views on the apocalypse situation and learning more about the country was very interesting as well. I also liked the scene where Alicia and Nick interacted with the kids. It's kind of cool seeing Nick be a little mature and a little funny at the same time, where he's playing the PSP with a little boy, and it just felt like one of those big brother little brother things. Another really cool scene in my opinion was with Alicia and the little girl, where she's singing Ring Around the Rosie, and she's asking what are posies to Alicia. And Alicia replies with the story about how I think it was in Europe or somewhere where they tried to give these flowers to these people to cure their sickness, and the little girl asks if it worked, and she says no. To me, this feels like a parallel to the world we have now. Everyone is sick and hoping for a cure, but in reality there is not one. That's just a really cool parallel that I enjoy in The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, and it's something to be appreciated. We finally move to the scene where Nick and the little boy go upstairs into his room, and we see Nick being that cool big brother type person once again, and the kids start showing off his figures and talking about how when people get infected, that's what you have to do, you have to shoot them, and Nick realizes basically that this is the world they live in now, and these kids will have to grow up understanding and accepting these ideas. In addition to that, we get the bomb that the kid drops, where he says, "Our family has these magic pills." Not only was that an interesting quote, but it also reminded me that Nick is still struggling with his addiction, and the kid basically says these power pills keep our family together. That just reminded me of Nick and the struggles that he is going through, and how having that addiction can break up his family. Once again, that is another part of the puzzle piece that is put together later on in which we finally understand it. The next day we see Chris, and I am still not liking this character at all, and I don't think we're supposed to like him, but still, he's just being a punk, and I would not give a shit if he happened to die by a walker right now, and that's just my honest opinion. However, it's showing the scene where he's basically watching everything and seeing what's going on, and he sees one of the older guys walking down the hill with a pickaxe. For some reason, he decides to go and follow him, and discovers what he was doing. Similar to how I mentioned in the earlier part of this review, just like in the Lost intros, we get that part where it finally comes back to that intro and explains why it was shown like that. Similar to this episode, in which it shows the beach and the gate where the walkers are coming up to. It then transitions to the part where the kid is talking to Chris, and he decides to take his anger out, and that's what I viewed it as. He was taking his anger out on all of those walkers with that pickaxe. He was craving bloodlust to get that anger out, just like we saw with Travis. He could have let that walker come up to the gate and waited a while, but instead he was knocking on the gate to get the walker to come over there, and then finally got that last kill in. Killing walkers can definitely be a good way to decompress and get your anger out, but just seeing Chris do it himself and his interaction with Travis after that, it's just kind of annoying, and Chris is just one of those characters I'm not liking. He also started to seem like some sort of demented serial killer when he did it. I mean, we know people like Abraham from The Walking Dead love killing zombies, but he doesn't seem twisted when he does it. We also get the scene where Nick is basically searching for those pills that the little kid was talking about, and then he searches everywhere, including the pill cabinets, anywhere where you would possibly find any pills. And at first when I saw this scene, I thought, oh no, this just reminded Nick of his addiction problems, and now he's going to relapse. So it was definitely cool to see that that was not the case. Another thing that I would like to note about that particular scene in itself was the place that he finds the pills. Now, he finds the pills in the mini globe, and one little fun fact that I've heard before is that some old-timers used to like to hide a little bit of booze in their larger globes, and it was a place that they used to hide some of their beer, and I just thought that was cool how it referenced that idea, but in a different way. We also get the part where the little girl walks up to Nick, and it looks as if maybe he could have successfully brushed off the girl to where she didn't see what he was doing, but then that was another one of those puzzle pieces that connected together later on. In addition to that, we get the scene with Travis and George, where he's fixing up the fence and he's talking to Travis, and Travis is saying, "Why do you stay here? Do you have any hope? What's going on with you and your family?" He then explains to Travis his viewpoints and that this is a place to hold out and stay until the world ends. In addition to that, one cool thing to note is where he was looking through the fence and we saw the big horde of walkers in addition to like the Ferris wheel, and I would definitely love to see that environment explored in the Walking Dead universe, especially with this group. That would be really cool. It reminded me of Zombieland the movie, and those scenes with the carnival and everything were very cool to watch, so I would love to see that in this show. I also love the quote with George, where Travis is basically telling George that this world is getting torn apart, and then George adds in some sort of cool metaphor where he's saying, "I'm just mending the fence." After that, we get some interaction with Madison and the woman, and she's like, I know you didn't turn that light on multiple times accidentally, what's going on? And then we finally get that confession that she did it on purpose. Later on, we get Nick's proposal where he says, I think they're pulling a Jonestown on this family and we've got to do something about it. And that was where they finally dropped the bomb on us. We were exploring all of the possibilities with those pills in our heads, and we finally realized, wow, this is what's happening. And it's kind of a brutal idea to think about, but every piece was pieced together perfectly in this puzzle, just like he was talking about how everyone needs to live and die at the same place, the lights being flicked on and off on purpose for a reason for these kids to escape, the pill situation, and everything in addition to that. We then see the scene where they're packing up and getting their things, and then George comes in and sees what's happening. I was actually getting pretty nervous as to how this situation was going to play out. And after that, the little boy comes downstairs and basically explains that there's something wrong with his sister. We go upstairs and we see the impactful scene of the girl lying on the floor and realizing that she has found those pills and swallowed them. And this also connects back to Nick, to where it is kind of his fault, but in a way it's not really because he had good intentions. But the girl saw those pills because Nick found them in front of her. But anyways, this was a very dramatic scene, and just like I mentioned earlier, it reminded me of Lizzie and Mika's situation in The Walking Dead. And then we get the part where the woman goes over to the girl, and this actually reminded me of the Dawn of the Dead remake, where it shows the husband and wife waking up to their daughter at the door, and then they see that she is a zombie. And this is just what it reminded me of, because the mom goes over towards the daughter, and she starts hugging her, and of course her neck is close to her mouth, and we see the girl's eyes open, and that is where you're like, oh no, these survivors have no idea. As hardened Walking Dead viewers, we know what's going to happen, but we know that some of these people might not have any idea. And George did say something about, we know what's going to happen, or something like that, so it did feel like he knew what was going on, but he was just going to let it unfold and everyone die at the same time like he had hoped. Just seeing the zombie daughter attack her own mother definitely reminded me of Dawn of the Dead, and I thought it was an awesome scene. And then we finally transition to the part where Madison and them are taking the boy onto the boat, and there's a lot of conflict with Strand and even Daniel Salazar, where Strand basically says that he is dead weight, and even in my opinion throughout the episode I thought, oh no, these kids can be a problem in the future, especially when the mother said that the kid starts getting worked up when it's nighttime. It was kind of cool to see this situation solved by the older brother, but also you kind of wanted to see what would unfold with the kid as well. Either way, there was a very dramatic ending where it showed them encountering the mother on the boardwalk, and Daniel refuses to help them. He's like, he's got a rifle, he can do this, and then we just hear the gunshot, and that was just a very dramatic scene, because you have to think about it, this is very early on in the apocalypse, and these people are already killing their own mothers. Something that I just realized is that this should have an effect on Chris, because now he realizes that he is not the only one that has been dealt this hand in the apocalypse. The older brother was also someone that he was actually able to connect with a little bit, so he understands who he was in a small way, and seeing that older brother kill his own mother to protect his younger brother is kind of a parallel to seeing Travis kill his ex-wife to save her son. Hopefully this is going to transition Chris into a new direction, and he's going to realize what happened and why it happened. I do have faith in the older brother taking care of the little boy, because we've seen that he can kill walkers and take care of this place, so I have faith in him taking care of them as well, and it kind of solves the situation for the group as well. Before I go, there were a few things that I forgot as I was speaking, and one of those moments was with the scene with Daniel Salazar, where he's exploring Strand's items and discovering what he has hidden, like in the safe, where we see that he is mapping out Mexico, and he's got like an assault rifle hidden in the safe as well, and it actually looked like Strand was some sort of heist member in the past, and possibly maybe some sort of big-time drug dealer. I don't really know, but it seems like Strand does definitely have an interesting backstory going on, and I really want to find more about him and what's going on. As always, I really appreciate you all watching. This was an absolutely fantastic Fear the Walking Dead episode in my opinion. A lot better than what I was expecting, especially with the previews that I saw. We did get a lot of slow burn development, but it was all worthwhile dialogue, and it all pieced together perfectly in the end, with a dramatic ending and a pretty decent action sequence. I also loved how they divided the character interaction and development. Just like how they do in The Walking Dead, they always make sure to give these characters a lot of development, and they make sure to split it up in a worthwhile time zone. Also, please make sure to leave a like on this video to show some support. It always helps out a ton, and I just cannot explain how much it helps. It shows that you want to see more Walking Dead videos in the future, and it supports this channel. Please make sure to subscribe as well if you are new here. I cover The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, Better Call Saul, other TV shows, and I plan to cover Preacher in its upcoming season as well. Thanks again for watching, guys. Peace out.